Genetic mutations and how they work. DNA sequence mutations happen often in cells. Mutations can be caused by many things, such as radiation, chemicals, or even errors in the synthesis of DNA. But the cells can repair many of these mistakes. Enzymes dedicated to this function repair many of these mistakes when they find them. Yet errors do manage to slip by. Since DNA holds the building plan for the making of proteins, any change in DNA can lead to the creation of the wrong sequence of amino acids. Many times, these changes can lead to the formation of an incorrectly made protein. A mutation that occurs within a segment of DNA does not mean it automatically produces proteins that do not function correctly. Other factors determine whether a mutation provokes a noticeable change or not. The location of the mutation, the length of DNA that is changed, and how the changed protein is normally used are all important factors. All these things determine if the mutation is undetected, if it provokes minor illness, or if it is fatal to the organism. Genetic mutations can be either very large or extremely small. A large-scale mutation could affect several genes, whole chromosomes, or sets of chromosomes at the same time. By contrast, a mutation could affect something as tiny as just one nucleotide base out of the millions that make up a DNA strand. Even with a change as small as one nucleotide base, it is possible to produce a protein that is completely abnormal. By contrast, several changes do not always produce a protein that fails to work properly. That's unusual. There are several basic types of mutations. The first mutation we will talk about is called deletion. A deletion is the accidental removal of bases. This can happen on a small scale, such as the deletion of just one base, or it can occur on a large scale, removing an entire gene or genes, sometimes even whole chromosomes. A deletion generally causes the loss of a sequence within just one chromosome. With deletions, proteins are usually synthesized with a loss of function. Deletions are known to be the cause of many genetic illnesses. Another type of well-known mutation is insertion. A small-scale mutation, insertion involves the addition of genetic material. It can involve a single base, several bases, or even a small portion of another chromosome. In the last case, genetic material is separated from one chromosome, then inserted into the sequence of another chromosome. This exchange of genetic material from one chromosome to another can happen at a large distance within the nucleus. Because of this, chromosomes do not need to be next to each other. As strange as it may sound, the genetic material floats from one chromosome to another. Insertion can lead to the creation of proteins that suffer both loss of function and gain of function. Loss of function is the more common consequence of the two. Both deletion and insertion can produce what is known as frame shift. Think of a sequence of marbles, numbered 1 to 21. Each marble represents a nucleotide. Every 3 marbles in the order represents a codon. So, in this sequence of marbles, we have 7 codons, where the first codon has numbers 1 to 3, codon 2 has numbers 4 to 6, etc. In a frame shift, a deletion or insertion produces a change in the number of nucleotides in a sequence and leaves the wrong nucleotides in the codon. Let us say that marble number 5 is removed from the sequence. That means that codon 1 has the correct marbles in it, numbers 1 to 3, but Codon number 2 has the marbles numbered 4, 6, and 7. This means that it has marble 7, a different nucleotide in it. And all the following codons will have their numbers shifted over 1, with the last codon having only 2 marbles in it instead of the normal 3. This is important because a deletion can leave a codon missing a nucleotide, and the nucleotides it does have may not be the ones it should possess. Insertion causes the same complication, but unlike deletion, it adds nucleotides instead of removing them. Point mutation is a small-scale change that affects just one base on one chromosome. The affected base can be switched out with another, or it can be deleted completely. A new extra base could be inserted into the sequence. When a point mutation causes a base to be replaced with another, there are several things that can happen. In a change known as transversion, a purine, like adenine, can be changed for a pyrimidine, like cytosine. In a change called transition, a purine is changed for a purine, like adenine for guanine. Or it could just be a pyrimidine for another pyrimidine. In either transversion or transition, when a base pair is changed, the paired base on the opposite DNA strand must also be changed. Otherwise, the new base will not be able to form hydrogen bonds with the opposing base. For example, if we have an adenine and put a guanine in its place, the thymine on the opposite strand that bonded with the adenine must be changed for a cytosine, so it may bond with the new base of guanine. A point mutation can be called silent if the changed base leads to a codon that still codes for the original amino acid. This will lead to a protein that has an amino acid sequence that is not changed, even if the original base is altered. So naturally, this protein should function as expected. A missense mutation is a form of point mutation in which a different amino acid replaces the original amino acid. This may lead to the creation of a protein that does not function the way it should. A nonsense mutation is another form of point mutation that will cause protein expression to suddenly stop. This can create a smaller, unfinished protein that may not work at all. Duplication is often a large-scale mutation that normally affects one chromosome. A large sequence of DNA is duplicated and then reinserted immediately after the portion that has been copied. Duplication may create one copy, or it may create many copies of the same segment. All copies can be reinserted together, one after another. Duplication is known to be a large factor in the development of cancer. As an interesting theory, researchers believe duplication may have been instrumental in evolutionary survival. In this process, a species develops or improves inherited traits. This can allow a species to survive in its environment with greater success. Inversion is a large-scale mutation. Normally, it involves one chromosome. Inversion is when genetic material is turned around. The affected material, like a gene, is taken out, flipped in the opposite direction, and then reinserted from the same location it was taken. With inversion, there is no loss of genetic material, and there is no duplication. The genetic material is simply turned around. Many times, inversion is undetected. But when it does affect protein formation, inversion can lead to a loss of function. Translocation is a type of large-scale mutation that involves 2 chromosomes. In this mutation, genetic material from the 2 affected chromosomes trade places. Just like an insertion, the affected chromosomes do not need to be next to each other. Translocation can cause a balanced or unbalanced exchange of material. In a balanced exchange, the 2 chromosomes trade equal amounts of genetic material. In an unbalanced exchange, unequal amounts of material are exchanged. This means one chromosome gains extra genetic material while the other chromosome loses genetic material. Translocation can lead to the expression of proteins that have a loss of function or gain of function. Duplication, deletion, insertion, inversion, point mutation, and translocation are basic forms of mutation that can alter DNA sequences. As you have seen, these changes can be on a very small scale, affecting just one base out of millions, or they can be so large as to affect 2 chromosomes at the same time. But remember, both large-scale and small-scale mutations can go undetected. It will depend on what part of the DNA sequence they affect and whether this sequence is used for protein synthesis or what the protein normally does.
he's a kid but has a mind of a grown-up. That's the type of person Eddie is.
Through the eyes of a proud mother, 10-year-old Eddie Smith is a normal, happy child.
He's very outgoing, smart, very smart.
But through the lens of a microscope, Eddie is much different than other children his age. At birth, Eddie was diagnosed with sickle cell anemia. At first, his condition seemed to have little effect on his daily life. But eventually, that began to change.
As Eddie got older, he began to get sick around 5 years old. And the first incident was the first light stroke.
Take your shoes off for me so we can get a height and weight on you.
A stroke that would lead his mother on a journey to find health and happiness for her son.
Sickle cell anemia is an inherited disorder in which the hemoglobin, or the coloring part of blood, has a defect that causes healthy, normally round red blood cells to change forms. Is there juice in here?
Pediatrician Lillian Beard specializes in treating children with sickle cell anemia. She says when red blood cells become sickled or crescent-shaped, medical complications can occur. This most often happens when sickle-shaped cells block small blood vessels and prevent blood from traveling to all parts of the body. Tissue that does not receive normal blood flow eventually becomes damaged. For Eddie, this has meant 2 light strokes in his young life. It also means regular blood transfusions to help his body replenish its supply of healthy red blood cells. Along with monthly blood transfusions, Eddie also regularly visits his pediatrician and pediatric specialists to monitor his health. Dr. Beard says it's this kind of diligent follow-up that keeps children with sickle cell anemia healthy.
We want to be certain that the child is adequately immunized with a complete series. We want to be certain that the child is getting a very balanced diet, and we're monitoring the growth and development very closely.
Sickle cell anemia is an inherited disorder, and parents can request a simple blood test to determine if they are carriers of the sickle cell trait. If both parents carry the sickle cell trait, there is a 25% chance one of their children will be born with full-blown sickle cell anemia. By knowing this ahead of time, Dr. Beard says parents can become educated on the condition and treatment options much sooner. Dr. Beard also advises parents to seek support and education through local sickle cell associations and support groups. And don't forget your child's pediatrician as a source of support and guidance.
It's very important to establish a very good communication and a good relationship with your pediatrician. Your pediatrician is going to be a partner with you in providing not only health care, but advice along the way.
Although a cure has not yet been found for this condition, new bone marrow and stem cell research gives pediatricians like Dr. Beard hope for the future.
The good news is that the landscape with sickle cell anemia is changing very rapidly. We don't have a cure today, but I can foresee that one day there will be a cure for sickle cell anemia.